Welcome to the Everybody Matters podcast, a show dedicated to the idea that when organizations care enough to show their people that who they are and what they do matter, they unlock the only business idea with truly unlimited potential. I'm Brent Stewart, your host. This podcast is an outreach of Barry-Wehmiller. Don't forget to connect with us on the web at barry-wehmiller.com, on Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and check out our blog, trulyhumanleadership.com. Cynthia Bayuk-Bishop has been a friend of ours at Barry-Wehmiller for quite some time. Several years ago, she came to us wanting to know how she could apply our principles of truly human leadership to change the administrative culture of the school district in Texas in which she worked. She came to St. Louis and learned from our BW Leadership Institute, taking almost all the courses they offered, and she brought those learnings back with her to inspire remarkable change. Nowadays, she's trying to reach out directly to students, adapting Barry-Wehmiller's communication skills class, Listen Like a Leader, for middle and high schoolers, teaching students how to listen, teaching teenagers how to listen long before they get into business or the workplace. And here's a montage of student reactions to her class.
I've seen what it did to my classmates and stuff, and that kind of inspired me to I want to take it next year. So, because I've heard that they have skills that they're probably going to use later on in life, and that'd probably be useful for me.
I never really read people as different people, I guess. I was just like, oh, I'm talking to somebody else. I never really thought this is the kind of person they are, this is how I need to talk to them, this is what they not necessarily want to hear, but it's what they need to hear at times. It never even occurred to me I could listen differently and be responsive in different ways.
Well, when you listen, you retain all the information that the person's giving you, and then you can form your own response to what they're giving you, as opposed to just talking at somebody and just, letting it all out. You're really, processing what they're saying and then giving a thoughtful response back.
I got a job from it. I learned how to style flex to everybody's need at the job, and I learned how to talk to people. So now I'm a salesman at a Western wear store, and it helps me in my everyday sales career. It just is a great thing for me.
So at first I thought this class was going to be able to teach us how to command others in order to lead them in the right direction, but what I figured out is that in order to be a better leader, we have to listen to others and put ourselves last in order to benefit others.
On this episode of the Everybody Matters podcast, we talked to Cynthia about her journey, her efforts to help educators and administrators feel like they matter, and how that makes a difference in their classrooms and in their buildings. And we talk about her efforts now to go directly to students and teach them the invaluable skill of listening. Just imagine the impact. Now here's Cynthia Bayuk-Bishop.
Well, I was hired as the Deputy Executive Director for the Region 18 Education Service Center out in Midland, Texas. And so I had already worked with this director for several years in a statewide curriculum project that we were leading. And it just so happened that everything aligned and it was the right time for me to make a change. And so I left where I'd been for 20 years and went out to a new service center to help them create the kind of people culture that they desired. So one afternoon I had a talk with him, and he was asking me some specific questions, and I felt a little bit defeated and went back to my desk and just kind of said a prayer. And I said, Lord, please help me find that which will catapult us into the culture that I know we're capable of. And so I began just surfing the internet. After about 15 or 20 minutes, up comes this site, Truly Human Leadership. And I thought, I've never seen that. I clicked on it. I started digging deeply into the website, found me a contact that was Matt White, began emailing him, and said, could you please come to our service center? Well, at that time, they were not a consulting arm of Barry-Wehmiller. The Leadership Institute was just getting up off the ground. And he said, well, we don't exactly do that, but we have classes that you can come to. And I applied, and it was the first thing that I'd ever really asked for, being a new hire at the service center. And my executive director supported me 110%. I even took another colleague with me. I was absolutely smitten is not the word. I was completely transformed myself just at the experience because of the way I was treated. And it was as though I was the only person in the room. And I had the good fortune that night at our dinner event to be able to be seated at the table with Bob Chapman. And of course, I was just absolutely enthralled with his message and his purpose. It was such a highlight of that trip to be able to sit and talk with him somewhat one-on-one, because we were seated at small tables. Well, from there, the next class that I attended was Listen Like a Leader. And it wasn't too long after that I realized that we could go to the professor school that's now called the facilitator school. Did that, took another colleague with me that I knew would be instrumental in helping me to transform the culture there at the service center. And he's now an employee of our Community Listens. So isn't that quite full circle for everything that we've been doing and trying to accomplish? But that's how I got connected to Barry-Wehmiller.
So kind of going back a little bit, when you had moved from the district where you were in for 20 years to the other one, what was kind of the culture like there? What was going on? What were you trying to do there? And what led to that kind of moment of frustration where you were searching the web trying to figure out what to do?
I spent my first 2 weeks there simply walking the hallways, learning people's names, learning their roles and responsibilities. Being the new person, people are somewhat skeptical because they don't really know who you are. So I wanted to establish myself as a person that was there to unlock the potential of every individual in the building, regardless of your role, regardless of your responsibilities. That takes time. So I would say that the first missing ingredient was trust, that there was not a lot of trust that existed between people who worked in different components. It was kind of the silo mentality, and one silo perhaps pitted themselves against another component or another department. And I don't think that people always do that deliberately. I think that's something that occurs out of past leadership. And something could have happened 25 years ago and people are still carrying it around, and it's just the story that's being told. So I was trying to work on that. So I would say trust was the first thing that was missing. The second thing that I believe was missing was the belief in every individual that inside them there is a leader, and that leadership comes in all shapes, sorts, sizes, colors, facets. Some of us are out there in front of everybody, leaders. Some of us prefer to lead in the shadows. And so I wanted everyone there to understand that every person we hire them because they're a leader. And when they are out there working with the school districts that are our responsibility, your job is to lead. Your job is not to stop and say, wait, hold up, I got to go back, I got to get a phone and I got to call mama or I got to call daddy. No, you're the leader out there. And if you don't have that capacity in you, then perhaps we've made a mistake in hiring the wrong individual. So it was all about cultivating the concept of leadership in every individual, that they were being looked at as someone that we could extend responsibility to and that they are a leader. So trust, leadership, And then I think the other component that was missing, because everybody was pretty much an expert in the field in which they were hired to work, I think the third component was unity of purpose, alignment of purpose, getting past the what we do and how we do it, but coming together as a unified whole with the same purpose in why we do what we do. And that was totally revealed to me in that first class of Beyond Benchmarking. And then the feat to that discovery came in Inspire Like a Leader. And it began, I returned and began moving the culture immediately. And I know that Sarah and Matt both refer to it as the low-hanging fruit. We began our listening groups so that we could hear what people were really thinking. And of course, that took time because there has to be a level of trust that what you say is acknowledged. And so we began to give feedback immediately after the listening sessions and go for the low-hanging fruit to let people know that we were, in fact, listening to them and that they had been heard and that everyone had a voice in the kind of organization that together we were trying to build.
In an educational organization like that, in our schools, what happens when, within the leadership and with the teachers and everything, what happens when there's a bad culture? What happens when there's mistrust? What's the effect on, the mission of that organization?
People cannot do their best work when they do not believe that there is psychological safety and that the people that they work for, and I want to clarify that because I don't believe we work for anyone. I believe we work with any organization if the leadership is one that is people-centric. But I think that what happens, people do not do their best work, and people are suspicious in the things that they're being told to do and don't really believe that that is in their best interest or it's not in the best interest of the organization. And the conflict begins to build beneath the surface. When people come to work, I always say to everyone that I work with, I want you to feel nothing but joy when you pick up your keys or your remote starter for your car, that when that car starts and you put it into drive, you are overcome with joy that you are going to a workplace that believes in you, you believe in it, and that we are creating something together. I believe in the field of education, when we are not cultivating the human spirit in the adults who are teaching and leading our students, we fall short in opening their eyes, their futures, their horizons to all the possibilities that exist within them, the student. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, I believe, when you believe in those who are leading your kids and they instill it in your kids then instill it in each other because they look at each other as human beings and not just objects. And it cultivates a sense of belonging, a sense of safety, and that no one's out to get me, and that I can be successful in this system in which I'm being educated. And I think when we don't have all the right elements, one of 100 things is suffering in our ability to have the best schools possible to get our kids prepared for the future that they choose for themselves.
So as you were taking these classes and bringing different ideas, bringing these nuggets back into the system, trying to implement them in the district, what was the response?
I believe initially they truthfully thought it was all talk and let's see if there's any do. Because people get cynical if they've been told something. I mean, one of the things that we're guilty of oftentimes in education, we jump on one fad, we jump on the next fad because everybody's looking for the quick fix. And I think that people were a little hesitant to jump on board because they wanted to know that this was not just the next thing swinging through the door. And if we hold on long enough, in a few months, it'll swing right back out the door again. And we'll be right back where we started from. So nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I think that was the initial hurdle. So we knew that we had to walk everything that we were talking. And the first order of business was to get the entire administrative team on board, because if everyone's not walking and talking the same message of what it is that we're trying to accomplish, well, you're already experiencing defeat. Every staff meeting, this was an item up front at every staff meeting. One of the things that began to really change the mindset and the attitudes of all of our staff, we would highlight at least 2 individuals at every staff meeting, and they would tell their story. They would tell their story of what this meant to them, how they saw themselves within the people-centric culture where everybody matters, how they fit, and what is their responsibility and contribution to that. And they would also, I would call that an internal story, and they would also share an external story, how something that they had learned from what we were learning together, they had extended it out in the districts to teachers or student groups that they were working with, and how it came back to them full circle, and the way that the support of all of our district personnel, how they were supporting us more deeply, because now they were believing in us because they knew we believed in them, just by the way that we were recognizing them as precious human beings and that they too matter. And then they turned around and extended it to their students. So it's just that cycle of respecting and recognizing individuals for the precious beings that they are.
And change happened. You started seeing more and more people. The attitudes got better. The atmosphere got better.
Absolutely. And we began to have events in the evening. Some of them I hosted in my own home. We would call it the annual Bishop Bash. And the first one that we had, didn't know what the turnout would be, but there were somewhere between 75 and 80 people that came in and out of my home that evening. And the executive director was absolutely in awe. He said, "We have never, ever, in the 3 years that I've been here, had this many people turn out for any event that we've sponsored." And I think that when you open up your home to people, you're letting them really see who you are. And so we held that event, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And I think that was one of those experiences where we began to get over the mountain. We kind of crossed the top of the mountain, and people began to really believe that we were truthfully and soulfully trying to create an organization where you are highly respected, You are a leader. We need you. And together we can accomplish anything that we set our hearts and minds to accomplish. The majority of our work is not in direct alignment with the students. The majority of our work would be with the teachers, the principals, the superintendents, the school board members. But as all of those entities gained more trust in us, and they began to really understand that we were going to do what we said we were going to do, and that we would never leave them out to dry, for lack of a better term, it had such an impact on them that it created a better atmosphere for the learning environment. And the further we got into it, and we started our Listen Like a Leader classes with the teachers, administrators, and community folks, we began to teach them that it did not have to stop with the adults, that these are skills, these are tenets of life that every one of us needs to be living our lives with and through this act of compassion, humility, and empathy. And when the need arises, you need to stop everything, drop everything, and listen, because it's the most helpful thing that you can do for another person who needs you. Not to solve the problem for you, but to listen and ask the right questions so that you find the solution to the problem that you're having. And I think that when people began to have that epiphany, that's when we really saw people's lives being changed. And every time you see a life changed, the lives that are within their circle of care, they're making their lives better.
Your career journey had kind of went in some different directions there for a little while after bringing these principles of truly human leadership to the district, and now you're taking that directly to the students. Kind of explain what you're doing now.
Well, here's what happened. I spent 5 years out there in Midland at the service center, and we served probably 33 school districts and anywhere from 7 to 8 charter school districts while I was there. And then my husband was offered a job back in the Dallas Metroplex, and it was one of those things that he couldn't refuse. And so at that particular moment in time, I decided to go ahead and retire. But I knew that I wasn't retiring. One night, it came to me in the middle of the night, and I just sat up straight in the bed, and I said, oh my goodness, can't wait any longer. We need to be teaching the 3-day class to students. And then one step beyond that, we need to be teaching it to students and teachers and administrators side by side in the same room, elbow to elbow. So I literally got up and began crafting an email message to Sarah Hannah because I didn't know remotely the first step to take in making this happen. So I shared my vision with her in writing so that she could read it, reread it, and do whatever she might need to do, but told her that we talk often about how we're fixing broken adults. And the only way to stop fixing broken adults is to not let them get broken in the first place. And that we should be doing this with students, and this should be a part of their educational experience. Because who better to teach them? And who has more time with them? We have our hands on kids who go into our campuses within our school districts more than their parents do. And so I explained it all. And I figured it might take a while for me to get a response because I wanted to know whose permission do I have to have, what document must I sign, and what must I pay? Because in the education world, those are 3 things that you got to have or nothing gets launched. And she said, we believe in you. We know that you want to change lives. You have access to anything and everything that we have. Keep us posted and let us know how lives are being changed. And so it was like a bird in a gilded cage that someone just opened the door, and I flew out and haven't stopped since, and began taking the curriculum that was written for adults and rewriting it, fitting it to their age frame. Because one thing that you have to really realize up front, the suitcase that the adults bring to the 3-day class, filled with the baggage of life, experiences, defeats, victories, the kids don't have that same suitcase of baggage. And so it's very difficult when you put a kid on the spot and you ask them to think of a problem situation. They may not have a problem situation that they even want to think about or reveal to anybody else in the room. So we had to take some of the chunks that were lengthier, that I would call the direct teach, and we had to cut them down in terms of size, because let's say that a student is 15 years old. 15 plus 1 is about all the time that you can command their attention. So that would be 16 minutes. So a direct teach piece that lasts longer than 16 minutes, you're going to lose the kids. And in truth, that's really too long in this age of devices and everything being instantaneous through their cell phones or their iPads or whatever it is, their computers. So started looking at the instructional pedagogy, looking at the principles upon which, the learning principles that the curriculum was created, and just fine-tuning it for students. And this 3-day class was offered to students in grades 8 through 12. And I remember the principal, the first thing he said to me, "You want all of those kids, or do you just want the 8th graders, and then you're going to teach the 9th graders, and then you're going to teach the sophomores?" I said, no. We're going to take 35 to 40 kids. Some will be from the 8th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. I want all of them in the room together with their teachers. And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely." And then I said, "Well, I want to put one more caveat on that. And I want kids who are natural born leaders. I want kids who are in the middle that we would call the invisibles. And I want kids that are on the cusp of failing, that if they had something to believe in, their life just might turn around." And he said, "You got to be kidding me." I said, "Nope. Want them all in the same room. I believe in the content and the activities and the experience of this class to that degree, because it's not going to fail us." And it didn't. And the kids were remarkable. In the district that I piloted this with, we introduced it to 75 to 85 kids. And each group that we taught, it just expanded our understanding that we were on the right track, and that kids were definitely capable of taking in the content, experiencing the activities, and responding and reflecting in the way that it's all designed.
So how many classes of kids have you had now?
I've had 3 classes of kids, a minimum of 30 in each class, with anywhere from 6 to 10 teachers, and getting ready to launch the second pilot in another school district. So the original pilot and a new pilot is coming on because we've made a lot of tweaks and enhancements, and we've enriched a lot of the activities. And so can't wait for this next year to start, because right now I've taught 3 different classes, and it was very successful, and the kids loved it. And we had a celebration at the end that we called the I Am the Message Showcase, and the kids led it. The kids designed it, they led it, and this was an invitation to the next class of students that will be trained in this upcoming school year in these same principles and skills. And the kids couldn't wait. They could not wait to sign up because they wanted to be a part of it.
What are some of the changes that you've seen in the kids after the class, during the class? What's that really encourages you about this going forward?
I think when the students can write a positive recognition statement, as young as they are, with the ingredients of primary feelings, specific behavior, and the impact that it's had on them, I think that that's the first step in their understanding of how you honor another human being. And alongside of that, they understand that when a person comes to them with a celebration or a problem, that the way that they honor them is simply to listen. And I will tell you that one of the activities that we ask the kids 4 questions. You know, one question is to tell, one answer is, if someone comes to you with a problem, how should you respond? And each of these statements are true, false statements. And I may not can get all 4 of them, but I know one of them is to just tell them it's okay. Another one is to tell them that you've had the same experience and tell them what you did. But the bottom line of this is that all 4 of those statements are false. And at the beginning, the kids are adamant that they're all true. And they try to clarify by saying it depends on who's coming to you with the problem. It depends on whether or not they've asked you for your help to help them solve this problem. And it's just amazing that once they understand the concept of learned helplessness, and that if we're always fixing another person's problem, we're not equipping them in the way that best supports them to handle every curveball that life's going to throw them. And I think that realization, you can see a kid's eyes connect with what you're teaching them, because their facial expressions change, their eye expressions change. And to hear them talk about when they reflect upon what the 3-day class meant to them, it was apparent that something about them had changed. Now, here's the thing that we've got to be ready for in teaching young people. Would you agree that when we teach adults, that if we do not keep it in front of them, always coming back and revisiting, always keeping it a primary bullet on when we convene together as an organization or in our components, that the main thing has always got to be the main thing. And if we want to honor people, it's always got to be a part of the agenda. Okay, well, now I want you to think about young people whose lives are so busy in school that they're trying to answer the call of state assessment. They're trying to be involved in activities. And the districts that I've been working with are small schools where band, athletics, competitions in ag science, one-act play, choir, you name it, they're all vying for the same kids. So their lives are pretty stressful. And I'm not sure that everybody out there in the general public really gets that, because state accountability is how every district is rated. And of course, in the state of Texas, we've now added the accountability report card. So now districts are being graded and campuses are being graded with A, B, C, D, just like a kid's graded on their report card. So the stakes are high, and so is the stress. But it's how do we use what we've learned to permeate this campus and make it a place where everybody wants to come to, where everyone knows that they are safe, that they belong, and that they will be treated respectfully and with dignity. Because I know that right now, school violence, it's always in the news. And that was one of the things that was really the catalyst behind my stepping out there and attempting to do this, because we've got to bring safety, civility, and humanity back to our communities, back to our school districts. And so my hope is that eventually what we are doing now with just teachers and students, this next year we're going to have community members, key community leaders in the training with the teachers and the kids elbow to elbow. Because the community's got to see what the school is trying to do, and they've got to attack this safety and civility together so that they can build the kind of school districts and campuses that they want for their children, their grandchildren, and for all the generations to come. This is a culture that we want to live from the beginning of the year to the end of the school year, every year. And we want to back down what we're doing in the 3-day class for grade 8 through 12. And we want to back down the critical learning tenets into 7, 6, 5, and 4 to start with, so that we are priming the pump in grades 4 through 7. They step into the class in grade 8, and then we continue the deepening of how this can improve their lives as students, partners, spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, community members, workers in the community. We want to continue to deepen this every year. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I know that the team of people that I'm working with through Our Community Listens, that we are going to accomplish this. We want to be able for campuses, if they would like to have this as a year-long course or a semester course, that we can manipulate this and devise it so that they could deliver it that way. If they want to deliver it in a 3-day class and support it all year long, they can do that also. If they want it to be a before school or after school program, we can accommodate that, because every location and community is going to be different, and they have to be able to deliver it in the way that they believe it will be most successful. This is different than adults coming to a 3-day class, having 90 days of support, and going back into the world. This is creating a purpose for why we come together and fulfill that purpose, honoring every individual that our lives intersect with during that pre-K through 12 learning experience. And we have colleges that are coming on board, so it's going to follow students throughout college. And I just hope that we can get the entire world to wake up and understand that a more caring world begins with you. Can't leave it to somebody else. You have to do your part. And so that's my hope.
Thanks for listening to the Everybody Matters podcast. If you'd like to find out more about Our Community Listens, Bob and Cynthia Chapman's nonprofit, who brings Barry-Wehmiller's communication skills classes to communities, go to ourcommunitylistens.org. If you'd like to find out more about the Barry-Wehmiller Leadership Institute, the consulting arm of Barry-Wehmiller who partners with companies to change their cultures, go to bwli.com. If you'd like to find out more about Bob Chapman and Ross Zodia's book, Everybody Matters, The Extraordinary Power of Caring for Your People Like Family, go to everybodymattersbook.com. For updates on the book, on this podcast, for great content and insight. Don't forget to connect with us on the web at Barry-Wehmiller.com, on Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller, Facebook, LinkedIn, and check out our blog, trulyhumanleadership.com. I'm Brent Stewart. Thanks for listening. And don't forget, Everybody Matters is the only business idea with truly unlimited potential.